Hi, this is Mark Lee from Third Day, and you're watching Good Company.
Good Company!
Hey guys, my name's Scott Bowling, and you're watching Good Company. Today, I have an award-winning singer/guitar player. He's best known for Third Day. He also has a book out and a solo album out. So, Mark, thank you for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm excited about it.
Dude, I love your book, man, and you did the audio book too, which is awesome, man.
I did. That was a really interesting experience. I knew that I wanted to do an audiobook, but I didn't know how all this works. I'm kind of new to the book publishing thing, and I just got a random email from this company, this third-party company up in Chicago. They said, hey, do you want to do an audiobook? I said, absolutely. They said, do you want to get somebody else to read it, or do you want to do it? And I said, no, I want to read it. So they flew me up there, and I went to this little building at this little studio, and I just walked into a room, and they had an iPad with my book on it, and then some like cough drops and water and stuff. Oh, nice. And they just turned on a microphone, and I just started reading it. That was a really interesting experience.
Did you do it in like a couple of days?
A couple of days, yeah. Nice. I went over, I could have probably done it in one long day, but you know, after talking for a long time, your voice gets kind of worn down. So we went for maybe about 6 hours one day, and then came back and did the rest the next day.
So this is your book right here. How long did it take you to go to write something like this?
So we had, about 4 years ago, we had a break in our touring schedule, and I've always wanted to write a book. My mom was actually a school librarian. And so she used to bring books home for me, like the Narnia books and The Hobbit and things like that. And I was just always fascinated with books. And so I'd been talking about it for a long time. My wife was like, okay, you either need to write this book or quit talking about it. So I was like, all right, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to write a book. And it's going to be like one of these books that I was talking about, like the Narnia books, which I loved when I was a kid. And she was like, and as only spouses can do, she said, you're stupid. And she's not stupid because I wanted to write a book, but because she was like, you need to share your story. Not saying you can't do a fiction book down the road, but you need to share your story because not a lot of people know about it, one, and then two, a lot of people hopefully will be inspired by it. And so what happened was I actually got hit by a truck when I was 14 years old. I was selling donuts for my church youth group. Yeah, if you guys didn't hear that, I'm going to say it again because it's so crazy. I got hit by a truck while I was selling donuts for my church youth group. Yes, that happened.
I love how you asked all the ambulance and everybody, do they want to buy a donut? Has they're kind of peeling you off?
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, I don't know if it's like because I was in shock a little bit or I just was, trying to make light of the situation. Yeah, so the ambulance people, when they're doing the x-rays at the hospital, all the nurses and doctors there, I was trying to sell donuts to everybody. And I didn't have any, and a lot of them were like, yeah, we'll buy some donuts, but I didn't have any with me. They were all scattered over the road from getting hit by the truck. So
man, and also in that book, I won't give the whole thing away, but you talk about VH1 behind the music, and that was like, I was obsessed with VH1 behind the music. I'm like, man, I got all the bootlegs.
Oh yeah. Totally. There were a couple of goals in writing the book. One was to share my story in a way that hopefully people can read it and be encouraged, and that they can apply these truths that I think are universal, that they can apply to their lives. That's one goal. The other goal was I wanted to be able to incorporate as much cool things from me being a little kid and growing up as possible. And me being from Atlanta, I try to incorporate as much about the Braves, and I talk about Steve Barkowski, who played for the Falcons when I was a kid. I got some of that in there, and then it's just some cultural references, like I talk about Little House on the Prairie, I talk about Cheap Trick, and I talk just a lot of different things like that. I try to allude and just get those things in there as much as I could.
Oh, that's cool.
So yeah, behind the music, absolutely. And I feel like that's a great analogy for life, because you watch Behind the Music, and they're always capturing this artist at this point in their career, and they have to make a story out of it. They have to make it interesting, so they have this story arc, how everybody, they get together, it's these kids, they're excited about their music, and then they get successful, and they have all these problems, they get into drugs, and they start fighting in the band. Well, then by the end of the Behind the Music episode, everything's great. Their life is the best it's ever been. You watch any Behind the Music episode, and that's what it is. But real life doesn't work that way. We're not at the beginning of the story. We're not really at the happily ever point of the story. 99 times out of 100 we're not. We're kind of in this weird middle place.
That you said that your new solo album, is that kind of where you get some of that, your lyrics from? You're like, goodbye to, I'm trying to remember your...
Yeah, goodbye happily ever after. Yeah, absolutely. Yes, so there's a song, so the book is called Hurt Road, and there's a song on Unshakable Heart called Hurt Road, which was probably the hardest song I've ever written, because I was taking all of the ideas from this book and trying to get it down into this perfect little 3.5-minute pop song, which was a little difficult. But yeah, I talk about that, just that idea of like happily ever after is like this mental thing that we've kind of made up that doesn't really exist in real life most of the time. And you really just have to embrace, instead of looking for that happily ever after and always like projecting your life out into the future, you have to embrace the moment of what God's got in front of us right here.
Is this the first time that you've written lyrics? I mean, is that something new for you, writing lyrics?
No, I've been writing lyrics probably since high school. You probably don't want to hear any of the lyrics I wrote in high school because they were terrible. But yeah, actually the first song that I ever wrote myself, that I did the music and the lyrics for, was a song called Sky Falls Down. It ended up being on Third Day's third album called Time. And so that song, which was the first song that I ever really wrote and finished, it ended up getting awards. Wow. It was like the Dove Award for Rock Song of the Year. And I was like, man, this songwriting thing is easy. No, it's not easy at all. I just got really lucky on that first one. But yeah, I've been doing music and lyrics for a long time.
That's cool. Yeah. So talking about Third Day, so we have some old school.
You have got some old school, let me tell you.
Contagious.
Yeah.
Long Time Forgotten. Do you remember
the aptly named album "Long Time Forgotten" because it should be "Long Time Forgotten"? Right that's me, the one with the mullet. That's me.
Oh,
yep.
Nice. Yeah.
So that was an interesting. Go ahead and laugh because it is funny.
Did they make you cut the mullet, or was that cool? I mean,
it was cool for about 5 minutes, but we were past the 5 minutes by this point in time. We didn't really know we were going to be doing a photo shoot that day, and so we were at the studio. So David here, he was our drummer, and he had a studio in his basement, and we were recording. And we had a friend of ours who had a camera, and she was there, and she was like, "You want to do some pictures?" And we were like, "Okay." So we all just walked out and did the pictures in the backyard at this house. So Ty, who ended up playing bass with us, on that day, he wasn't Third Day's bass player. He was hanging out there to play bass.
He's smart.
And they were doing pictures, and he was like, "Well, I'll just be in these pictures." And so, lo and behold, he ended up becoming our bass player.
He's like the middle guy there. He looks like the singer.
I know, he looks like the main guy, doesn't he? And then there's poor Mac, is like fourth down the row. And then Billy, who was playing keyboards, I mean, you can't even hardly tell that's a person. That looks like some kind of conspiracy photo. There's like this extra dude in the picture.
And then you got this one. So was this far apart? I mean, did you guys do this?
They were pretty close together. Okay. So Long Time Forgotten, the first one, that came out, we recorded it in 92, and I think it came out in 93, if I'm remembering right. Mm-hmm. And then we started working on Contagious right after that, and that came out in 94. We all worked at a Y camp up in the North Georgia mountains, and we wanted to make sure to get that done in time so we could, every week we would sell it at the camp, and the kids would buy it from the camp store. We actually did really good.
Is this one of the kids?
So that is Ty, our bass player. That was his brother when he was a little kid.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
And they had this picture, and Ty just thought that would be perfect for the cover, which it really was, and it works for the Contagious idea because it looks like a little kid that's got something.
Where are they now? Like have Ty or what he looks like now?
Oh, exactly. Yeah, totally.
Smashing Pumpkins did that. They did the two kids on the.
Oh yeah, which I saw that tour when it came through Atlanta a few weeks ago, and it was incredible. It was really good. Yeah, and they had a video of the kids from the Siamese Dream cover. It was really cool.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So okay, this album right here.
Yes.
Your official first record, I guess.
That's right. Yeah.
What was it like making this? I mean, this is, you guys are signed at this time, right?
We were, yeah. What's interesting, I think this probably happens with a lot of bands. So this was our first album, and it was a, in a sense, it takes your whole life to make your first album because it's the songs that you're writing as you're growing up and coming onto the scene. But for us, this song, it's almost like a compilation of what we've been doing up to that point. There are songs that are as old as the Contagious album that are on there. Yeah, they're probably about over half of the songs on this album were from Contagious. So we had recorded those back in like 94. Then we went in the studio again with an independent label that was based in Atlanta, recorded about 2 more songs. And then we went in one more time when we got signed with Reunion Records, recorded 2 more songs. Wow. So it was recorded in these different stages. Absolutely. So it was almost like a best of like Third Day greatest hits of the first like 5 years of our existence.
Were you guys working like at regular jobs at the time? Because doing all this studio must have cost them.
By this point, we were not. By the time we, even I'd say 6 months before this record came out, we were busy enough doing shows independently that it was a full-time thing for us.
Nice.
But definitely while we were making those first 2 albums, and that's why I've got a mullet. I mean, because it's like, I don't have time to get a haircut. I was in school, I had a part-time job after school, and then I was doing third day stuff and all of the moments in between. So didn't have time to focus on fashion, but I really probably should have.
I like the mullet though, because when I was younger, we had the rat tail. So that was huge.
Well, and between the rat tail and the mullet, what it wasn't necessarily a fashion statement. It was like a statement of rebellion. When you're in high school and like you got a job and they say you can't grow your hair past your collar, that was like me trying to grow my hair as long as I could get away with. So for me, it was like, yeah, man, I'm gonna stick it to the man. I'm growing my hair past my collar. So it's so stupid now, but it was a big deal at the time.
Was Consuming Fire your first video that you guys shot, or did you? I'm trying to remember.
It was, yeah.
Okay.
That was our first video that we did, and it was really interesting because I think it was film students in LA did this video and brought us out. And it's hilarious now because I've played this video for my kids that we can go back on YouTube and watch it. And this was in the mid 90s when the alternative thing was really big. And so you would just have all these weird images there on the video. Yeah, but now, 20 years later, I'm watching this with my kids and they're going, Dad, why are you guys standing in that water playing your guitars? And I'm like, I don't know.
It's art.
And they're like, Dad, why is that old lady doing dishes and she's standing in lake water? I have no idea. Dad, why is that kid up on the mountain with the light shining? I have no idea. It was the 90s. It was just, that's what people did back then.
That's great. So you guys toured on that. I remember my brother and I saw you, and a couple buddies saw you back in the day doing like churches a lot. Did you?
Right,
do that?
yeah, we
the
did.
Free Chapel is one I saw you at.
We did, absolutely. We started outside Atlanta, and we would just play wherever we would get the opportunity. And it's funny, for the first 5 years, we probably made 2 outgoing calls. It was more a case of we would play at a little youth group or something, and there would always be somebody at that show that would go, hey, you guys did a great job. We'd love to have you come to our youth group and do something. We'd love to have you come to our church and do something. So for the first several years, that was kind of how we would book shows. And then we didn't have a booking agent for probably about 94 or 5. Oh, wow. That was kind of our first big break, was when there was a local booking agency. They signed us on. And actually that guy, still to this day, is Third Day's booking agent. Yeah. Wow. Now we're kind of retired now, so there's not a whole lot to book, but he's our guy.
Who booked you guys before you had a booking agent? Do you have one guy in the band?
We just do it ourselves. Really? You always have, there's kind of the
characters.
Guy, you have to kind of have the business guy in the band. And Ty, our bass player, he definitely fit that role. In fact, he now, Third Day, and we'll get into this a little bit more later, but Third Day, we've kind of put the music down for a little while, and Ty has like fully embraced like the business, like kind of corporate role. And he's actually doing really well with that. So, awesome. Yeah, so he always has kind of been that. So in those early days where, the rest of us were like looking for, where the food is or whatever, Ty's the guy that was like, behind the scenes, like doing the kind of businessy kind of thing. So cool. It's really important to have somebody like that in a band.
Yeah,
sure.
I think of like Metallica, you have like the Lars Ulrich, the business guy.
Yeah.
That's totally. The guy. Okay, so your second album, Conspiracy, number 5.
That's right, yeah.
Talk about this record. This is that song you wrote, right? You wrote...
It actually wasn't until the third album. Now I think there's a song, Alien. Mac and I kind of co-wrote that one together. But if you'll look, so the movie JFK had come out, and we had been touring quite a bit at that point in time, and we would just sit around on the bus and watch JFK like on infinite repeat. And so, they have all these like conspiracy theories and that, and we went down this massive road of getting into the conspiracy theories, and we thought, how fun would that be for the artwork of the album to include a lot of that, and to try to like bring it back and have sort of a Christian theme, like the whole Conspiracy number 5. If you look up, we found some big like unabridged dictionary, and the 5th definition of conspiracy it said something like when 2 or more people get together for a common cause. And we thought, okay, well, that's what we're going to do. We're that kind of conspiracy. We want people to come together, for the cause of Jesus. And so that was kind of the idea behind Conspiracy number 5.
Oh, so, that's cool. Yeah. I like that story. That's great.
Yeah.
And this sound was like a little more rockier. I don't know, like seemed like it had more guitar in it.
It did. It's funny, kids, don't second guess yourselves. Play the music that you want to play, that you feel in your heart that you want to do. But I'm being 100% honest, when the Bus record, our first record, came out, we got a lot of criticism because people thought we sounded like Hootie and the Blowfish, sounded like Pearl Jam. Now, I'll be honest, we were listening to a lot of Pearl Jam at the time. Hootie and the Blowfish, I was aware of, but didn't really know much about them. I mean, they were on the radio all the time, of course, but I wasn't like a huge fan or anything. They're great guys, but I didn't really sit around and listen to them. So we were offended that they compared us to Hootie and the Blowfish. So that record is almost a 15-song exercise in showing that we don't sound like Hootie and the Blowfish. It's a cool album in hindsight, but we were just so laser focused on trying to be something that we're not. But a lot of people really love that album.
When you're signed like that, is your record company wanting you to sound more like Hootie and the Blowfish, or are they caring?
I'm sure they would have loved that if we did sound more like Hootie and the Blowfish. But again, you know, this is the 90s, the alternative things going on, and nobody really knew what that was. They just knew that the idea is like that it sounds, you know, obscure and different and grungy and whatever. And so we made this album and it sounded obscure and different and grungy. So our record company was like, we don't get this, but let's put it out. So yeah, that was an interesting phase. And I feel like though, with that album, we showed that we were okay with taking risks, that we weren't gonna just do the safe, we weren't gonna just do the predictable. And so even though I think to date that's probably our least selling album, but I'm still really proud of that. I'm proud of what we went through to make that album. I'm proud that we, you know, took a risk on that one, and I think it set us up to be able to do some cool stuff down the road.
And then, so after that, you got your third one, Time. This is the one you have your song on.
Yeah, I do, yes. I've got a couple songs on that one. And so this one, if you polled anybody in the band, we would probably all say that this is our favorite album.
Oh, nice.
Because we, you know, for the first several years of being in a band, you're all just focused on the live side. You know, at this point in time, we'd probably been on stage and played hundreds of times. We'd only been in the studio for, if you totaled all of that time together, for maybe a couple of weeks. So we didn't really exactly know how to capture that live sound and get it to work for an album. But this time we partnered with a guy named Monroe Jones, who's a great producer. He had worked with this band called Owsley. They're a big alternative band back in the day, and we loved what he had done. So we brought him in, and I think did a really good job on that. But he was able to help us capture the energy and the sound that we had live in the studio. And what he did, I mean, it's just really simple, and it makes sense in hindsight, but it was so groundbreaking to us at the time. He just had us all set up in a circle, like we were gonna be doing a live show, and then they would mic everything in a way they could capture it. They weren't as, you know, the big concern is that the drums are gonna overwhelm everything. And he was like, you know what? We'll figure that out. Let's just get you guys being yourselves in the studio. We'll capture that, and we'll let us take care of making it sound good. And so we did that, and we all look back so fondly on that album because we just had such a great time in the studio.
Did it take you a long time to record? I mean, was it?
It was a few months. We spent a couple weeks there's a great studio. It's still there. It's a little different now. The guy that owned it has passed away, but a great studio called Southern Tracks down in Atlanta that huge records. Like you'd have no idea. You drive right by it. It's right off of Claremont Road there in Decatur. But Bruce Springsteen's recorded there, Elton John's recorded there, Tool is recorded there, Train is recorded there. All these huge albums have been made in this unassuming little office park there in Atlanta. So we recorded half the record there, and then the rest of it we went up to Nashville and finished it. But yeah, we had a blast. It probably took about 3 months to do the whole record.
And this album starts off with kind of a slower kind of song, right? Don't You Always Love You?
Yeah, I've Always Loved You. And that was a big battle with our record company at the time, because it's a slower song.
Yeah, it opens the record.
It has kind of a country, like kind of Eagles kind of feel to it, and then there's pedal steel guitar on it, which nobody cares about that now. It's not a big deal, but at the time that was like the biggest deal that to our record company. Like, we don't want to have this song with this pedal steel guitar open up this rock album, but we all just loved that song so much. We felt like it captured both musically and lyrically what we're all about. You know, I feel like if I had one message that I would share with people, it would be just that God loves you. As simple as that message is, that God loves you just as much right now as he ever will love you. So we just really wanted to make sure that was the first song and the first message that people heard. So even if it took kind of going to bat for it a little bit with the record company.
Does a song like that take a long time to write, or did it come very easy and natural?
You know, I think that one actually came like kind of easy and natural. I think that it happens both ways. You know, sometimes you'll have songs that I've had songs that have taken like a year to write, and then I've had other songs that just, you know, they almost write themselves. And this song was kind of in that second category. So yeah, Mac had this musical idea. He kind of played it for us, and like as soon as he started playing that, it wasn't even really finished or anything. We all knew like, okay, there's something really special there. He didn't have the lyrics done yet, but I just remember going, okay, yeah, that's a good song right there. That's something really special going on there. And I love the message of that song, that it just talks about just the love of God, and that God loves us right now where we are in this moment as much as he ever will. And so if there was one song that I could play for somebody to encourage them, that would be the one. So really proud of how that one turned out.
That's a great story. So now you guys have offerings, which you did a couple of these, offerings 1 and 2.
We did offerings 1, and we did offerings part 2, yeah.
Whose idea was to do a worship album?
So we've always done 1 or 2 worship songs on every album. We've always done worship music as part of our live show, and we always had just kind of, I think, known that at some point we were going to record a worship album. And so after doing 3 albums, we felt like, well, maybe it's time now to go ahead and do the worship album. And we did it, honestly, I don't want to say that it was a throwaway album or throwaway idea, but it really wasn't intended to be like an unofficial release like the other ones. We had done the first 3, and we were going to do this as this extra, almost bonus kind of thing before we did our next album. And we put it out, and then in fact, to the point that there's half of it was recorded in the studio, new songs, and maybe 1 or 2 cover songs, and then the rest of it was recorded live. And so I don't know if you remember, U2 did Rattle and Hum many years ago. So we loved that album. That was one of our favorite albums. Yes. And so they did the movie, and so they would have like a new song, a studio song, and then they would intersperse a live clip. And so it would go back and forth. We loved that album. We loved that format. So we wanted to do that for offerings. So in doing that, it was easier for us to record because, we'd recorded half of it already because we took, the equipment out and recorded it on the road. We only had to spend about a week in the studio, maybe 2 weeks, doing the new tracks, and then we're like, okay, well, there's that, and that's done. We'll just kind of throw it out there. Well, then it ended up being our best-selling album of our entire career. Yeah, so obviously when it started blowing up and really taking off, we knew that it wasn't going to just be a throwaway album anymore. So that was when we decided to do the offerings tour, and we made a DVD and did a lot of other things with it.
When you guys record live, like you said, is that a weird pressure, like this, we're going to play tonight and it's going to be recorded? Or do you just do multiple shows?
That's the key. If you do, and we've done both ways. If you record we know that we're recording one night, there's a lot of pressure on that. But if you're doing a tour, and like we did for offerings, we knew that there was equipment out, and a buddy of ours that was an engineer came out for like a week of shows and record. Right. So we knew that somebody was recording, but that if there's some great version of, say Creed is on the album. We did a great version of Creed, but I botched the guitar solo or something. Well, they can just, with the wonders of technology, they can grab my solo from another night and just drop it in there. So you just don't have the pressure at all, which makes it a lot better because without having that pressure, we, are more ourselves, and
I was thinking of like
capture that.
Bands like Kiss when they go back and redo the whole thing.
Oh, yeah, like that Kiss Alive thing. That I don't think it's a live album like at all. I think except for the crowd noise.
It's actual live.
There may have been like 1 or 2 cases where there was just something that was like out of tune or something that we had to go back and fix. But it's pretty much live. Yeah.
Yeah. Right on. So your next one is Come Together?
Come Together, yeah, that was a good one. But we all went out to the desert and recorded. No, I'm just kidding. But we did go out to the desert for the photo shoot for that. And
that's a cool picture.
We were out, it was funny, we were talking about U2, and they had the album Joshua Tree, where they had the picture of the desert. We thought it would be cool to actually go out to that desert without thinking that, wait a minute, it's the desert, it's going to be hot. It was February we recorded that, but it was still just blazing hot and sunny. And as you can see, those 2 guys, Ty and David, are both wearing sunglasses. What we had going on was we would trade. We didn't want to have everybody in the band wearing sunglasses because then we're like 5 blind boys of Alabama or something. But the sun was so bright that we would trade off, and we would let a couple guys wear sunglasses in different shots. And the rest of us, we would have our eyes closed, and they'd go, all right, we're going to count to 3. And then we get to 3, just open your eyes, we're going to snap the picture. But it was so bright. That was not fun.
Were you guys sweating at all? I mean, everybody's wearing long sleeves like it's cold. I mean, was it hot outside?
It was kind of that, you're in the desert, so yes, it's hot, but the wind was blowing, so the wind was cold. So it was like hot and cold at the same time. It was very odd, yeah.
But talk about recording this, getting off this huge, massive album you just did. Did you have pressure at all writing this? Or
it's interesting how this album came together, because come together, get it. But we recorded half of it. So we put out Offerings. I think it came out in the summer, and then we went right into the studio to work on this. And we recorded, actually I take that back, we recorded most of this album as Offerings was going up the charts. So we really didn't have a lot of pressure at all. We were gonna try to go into Southern Tracks and record again where we had done time, and it was booked up. So we were kind of under the gun about trying to find somewhere to record. What we ended up doing was we rented out, there was a brand new office space that was gonna be put in up in Ackworth, Georgia. We talked to the people that owned it, and they let us, before the tenants moved in, they let us just use this office building. So it was this empty building. We just came in and set up all our equipment and recorded. It was right downtown Ackworth. There's a train that went by about every 30 minutes. So you actually, on a couple of tracks, you can hear the train in the background. It's kind of hilarious.
Oh, that's neat.
But so it was really the opposite of there being pressure, because we'd set up our own space and we had, all the time in the world that we needed. That was actually a really fun album to make. And then we went, and instead of putting it out right then, Offerings was doing so well, we decided to do a tour for Offerings that next spring. And so then we had to go back and revisit this album many months later and go, okay, do we like this? Do we feel like we need anything else? We decided to record two new songs. Was it two? Maybe even three new songs at the end. We recorded Show Me Your Glory. That was one that I wrote. That actually ended up being a really big song for us. And then I Got You. We recorded those two way later, like almost a year later than
so you had the
ones.
album done, but show
and then we went back in. So
really
really.
that goes out first, like to push that track.
I think as we finished the album, right at the end during the mix phases, as ourselves and record company and management, everybody's kind of living with the album. Everybody just goes, okay, what do we feel like would be the best first single? And I don't know if it's because we recorded it almost last on the album, but everybody was really excited about Show Me Your Glory and how that had turned out.
And so did you guys do Offerings too right after that, or is that?
We did. So it was Offerings, and everybody, and we all kind of saw the merits in doing it. Everybody wanted us to do Offerings 2 right after, and we're like, no, we don't want to do that. That'll be terrible. So we did come together, and then we went back and did Offerings 2 a year or two later. So, yeah.
And you guys toured Offerings too, like you did the first one?
We did, yeah. We, I can't remember who we toured with on that one. That would have been in like 2004. Oh, yeah, we toured with Toby Mac right after Offerings had come out. And it was right as Wire, the next one, was coming out. We did a tour with Toby that year. That was a lot of fun.
That's awesome. So you have Third Day Wire, next one.
Which that is, I'd say Time is my favorite. Wire is like a very close second. And love that album cover. I've always loved Tightrope Walkers. There's actually even a story about that in my book. Mm-hmm. Always been fascinated with Tightrope Walkers and just that kind of daredevil thing, and just all these people come out to watch them, and in the back of everybody's mind is like, what if this guy falls? So I actually wrote the song Wire about that, and ended up being the title track for the album. I love this album and how it turned out. We recorded it with a guy named Paul Ebersold. He was based in Memphis at the time, so we all loaded up and went to Memphis to record. Mm-hmm. Lived in Memphis for 3 weeks, ate quite a bit of barbecue, which I was okay with. I'm a fan. So we had a great time making that album.
That single got pretty big too. Was it Come On Back to Me? Was that?
Yeah, Come On Back to Me. That got played a little bit on some mainstream rock radio, as did I Believe. We really, after having done the Offerings projects, we had this worship thing that was out there. We really wanted to, when we love that side of what we do, but we wanted to really showcase, hey, don't forget, we're a rock band. That's kind of our first love is doing the rock. So we really focused on that with the Wire album, and I'm really proud with how that one turned out.
And so you got this one now, wherever you are, sorry.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I feel like it's almost like a pendulum kind of thing. We had done the Offerings and we kind of swung really far in this one direction, and then we did the Wire album where it's like, okay, we're going to just rock on this one. And this is, Wherever You Are, is kind of like a best of both worlds kind of thing. There's a lot of great rock songs on there, like Tunnel. Eagles is another good one. I Can Feel It. You have these like really good rock songs, and then in the middle of those you have Cry Out to Jesus, which is this really straight ahead like ballad kind of thing. That was a really big song for us at the time.
That's a great
Mountain
song.
of God, that was another big one too. Yeah.
And so you guys just, and at this point, do you have a family now? I mean, I know you have kids, right?
I had, yes. So my first daughter, Abby, was born in '03. So it was, she had actually, when we were recording Wire, the album before this, she was born at the end of October, and about, I think it was, no, I'm sorry, it was the beginning of December, we went in to record Wire. So I had a 5-week-old at home. It was really hard to leave her, you know, and I would go home on the weekends. I'd be gone for like 5 days, and I would come back, and I could tell she had grown a little bit, you know, in the few days that I was gone, and it was really hard to leave every time. And that was when I first started feeling that pull. You know, it's like I really love doing the music thing. I love being on tour. I love being able to travel all over the place and meet people. But I also really love my family. I love this daughter that I have at home more than anything, and I want to be with her. So you just have this pull, you know, on your life. And so what we found, you know, a lot of people have to go about things different ways, but for us, we just really were deliberate about our scheduling so that even when we were gone, we were at our busiest. In a touring season, we're only gone for like 4 or 5 days at the time. So,
that's good.
And people all the time, you know, they think that we're like, you know, being in the military or a baseball player or something where you're just kind of gone. But we really had the schedule kind of dialed in to where we'd be gone about 4 or 5 days, and we still would be home for a couple. So
that's great.
Got to be there for the kids, and they quickly, you know, when they were little, they learned that yes, Daddy's going to leave, but then he's always going to come back. And so I think they were able to accept and
right. It's not like you're gone for a year. You're
right, exactly. I'm gone for a few days, and it was funny when they were little. My kids thought that everybody's dad was in a band, so they didn't quite understand that what I did was a little bit unique.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So after that, did you guys do Miracle after that? Was that what
Let's
happened?
see. So we did the Wherever You Are, and then we wanted to take some time off because we'd put a lot of music out in a short period of time. So we wanted to have a year where we didn't have anything. And I really don't mean anything against our record company. They're great people. I feel like the storyline here is like the record companies want to do something and we're wanting to do something. But, you know, you just have different people have different ideas. But so somehow it went from we're going to take a year off and not do anything to we put out a 2-volume greatest hits album and a Christmas album all within like a year's time. And so we had a lot of music out there at once. So
playing Christmas music, you must have done that like in July or something.
We record. I think it was May we recorded it. So that was it's hard to get the Christmas spirit going on when you're in May. We set up a Christmas tree and lights and stuff in the studio.
So by the time December hits, you're like, we're not going to listen to Christmas music.
Oh yeah, you're completely just in time to go do a tour for the Christmas album. You're completely sick of Christmas by that point. So yeah, that happened for us. See, that would have been like, the next one is Revelation.
So
that's the next one, yeah.
So this one, we got to talk about, this is like really good, and you guys have different guests on there.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, what'd you have, Chris
Daughtry, sang on it.
And Lacey.
We had Lacey, from Flyleaf.
This is probably one of my favorite albums, besides some of your other stuff, but man, this is a great album.
This was a really important album for us. You know, we felt like after having, you know, we did Wherever You Are, and there'd been this long stretch of greatest hits, Christmas. We just felt like the next album of all new music we needed to be making a really big statement. And I feel like we did. I'm really, really proud of how that album turned out. And we probably worked harder and longer on this than any other album except for maybe Time, our third album. Over a course of over a year, we went in and did demos. Probably 3 or 4 different times. We were just really trying to get everything right on this one. And we went out and recorded with Howard Benson, producer out in LA. And we left, we were out there for about 6 weeks recording. And really proud of how that turned out. Yeah.
What made you guys come up with the idea of having guest artists appear on it? I mean, 2 different ones. It just sounded really good. Was that the band's idea just to get like Chris Daughtry? Or?
I think so, yeah. It's, you know, after having done music for a long time, you just kind of form these natural relationships with different people. And in the case of Daughtry, we just crossed paths with him at, I think it was like the Grammys or something. We met him and just kind of hit it off. And I think he was a fan of ours kind of before he did the American Idol thing. And so he and Mac really hit it off and stayed in touch. And so when we were recording, and in fact, Howard Benson that did our album had produced Daughtry's record too. So it was not a stretch at all to call Chris out. to come sing on. And that was the same thing with Lacey. Howard had worked
she's cool.
with Lacey as well. Yeah, she's so great.
And you guys did a
coolest
live
voice.
You guys did a live album for this, didn't you?
We did Live Revelations.
Right.
We had a camera crew come out with us and film. We've done that for a few times, but it was more the case of what we were talking about earlier, where they would just film one show. What was cool about Live Revelations is we had them come out for about a week and filmed about 4 or 5 shows, and then they went and hung out with us all one day when we were all at home. So that was when Abby was, so Kitty, my second daughter, she was a baby, and Abby was about 4 or 5, and so there's a camera crew. We're there at the playground. It was very staged, you could tell. But here I am. Here's me and my daughters at the playground, you know. So, but I really like how that project turned out, because instead of just the concert, you get a little bit of behind the scenes, a little bit of us, you know, hanging out on the tour bus. Mm-hmm. We had some just coincidental kind of funny things happen. Like a guy that played guitar for us for about 5 minutes back in about '94. Mm-hmm. He happened to come to our show in North Carolina, and you know, our tour manager, you know, we're on camera. He goes, I don't know if you guys are okay with this, but do you guys remember August that used to play guitar with you? He's here. And we're like, oh, okay. So on camera, here's this guy that we haven't seen in like 15 years, like shows up, and we're all hugging and stuff. So that ended up being a fun little project. I like how that one turned out.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. So you got the next one, is it Move?
Let's see. Yeah, Move would be we did Revelation, and then we did Move. Yeah.
Move, okay.
Yeah, I love that one. This is a kind of a return to our roots in a lot of ways. You know, we had done albums like Wire and Wherever You Are, and then Revelation were all very rock oriented. Like, when I say rock, I mean like modern rock, like that was, you know, the stuff that was big in like the early 2000s kind of thing. But at this point in time, we really wanted to kind of get back to where we were on, you know, maybe the Time album, where it's very rootsy. You know, it's yes, we're from Atlanta. We wanted the music to sound like, you know, some dudes, you know, just sitting around some shack in, you know, the swamp somewhere, you know, that kind of vibe. So a guy named Paul Moak produced this one. Really great buddy of ours. He's a really talented guy. He's done, Matt Maher is another guy he's worked with a lot, and he's really able to tap into this really cool, like rootsy kind of rock thing.
Do you guys record all in the same room like you previously did?
Let's see, on this one, well, by then, so we actually had our own studio for several years there, and this was the first album that we recorded there. It was in Kennesaw. We had just a really cool space there that we had, big drum room, a place where we could all set up as a band and record. And so this was the first album we did there. So Paul and engineer Andy came down from Nashville, and we recorded, I think just about all that. There was probably a little bit that got recorded in Nashville, but just about all of it got recorded at our place. So, you know, you just really had us really comfortable, like literally in our environment, because it was in our studio space. And so, yeah, really, like, you know, songs like Lift Up Your Face,
that's great.
Make Your Move. I love Surrender, that's another one, but I just really captured that kind of more southern side of what we do.
Children of God, too, that's a great song.
Yeah, that was a really big song. Yeah, that was a fun one.
All right, so what's going on next?
Okay, now this is where Miracle is going to come in. Yeah, we don't have props for that one.
Miracle.
But yes, Miracle, that was another great album. We recorded that with Brendan O'Brien, who's a big, you know, rock producer, still a big rock producer now, you know, but back when we were like cutting our teeth listening to the Black Crowes and Pearl Jam, Stone Temple Pilots, he was the guy recording all of those albums. And so in our mind, we were going to go in and we're going to make this big old, like, you know, kind of 90s rock record with Brendan. And we had a great time with him. He's the neatest guy, one of the most creative individuals I've ever been around.
He's probably got some great stories, too.
Oh, a lot of great stories. It was really a blast hanging out with him. And he's a guitar player first, you know, so when I would be in there recording guitars, a lot of times he'd come in and be like, let me see your guitar for a second. He'd pick it up and he'd start playing like Sultans of Swing. Or he played, you talk about stories, he actually played the guitar solo on Hard to Handle, the big Black Crowes hit back in the day. Yeah. And the story behind that was he had told everybody in the band, he's like, hey, I'm buddies with Slash. So I'm gonna get Slash to come in and play guitar on this. And everybody's like, okay, cool. Well, they never could get Slash in there, and it was like the last day that they were finishing things, and so they're like, well, Brendan, I guess you're going to have to do it. So he threw down that solo. It only took him a couple of passes, but
that's so cool.
really cool. So anyway, all that to say, I'd be in there recording guitar, and he'd be like, "Let me see your guitar," and he'd start playing like that solo or whatever. And so,
is that harder when you have somebody over you that good?
You know what? No, I don't think so. I think it's actually good. I love being creative and coming up with ideas myself, but I also love knowing that if I kind of run into a dead end, that there's somebody else there that's going to go, why don't you try this? So I'm always a fan of that. And I love too, like just my personality, like if I'm working with somebody, there's different producers and different ways of interacting in the studio. There's a way where you're trying to like intimidate each other and like out rock star each other and, no, I'm going to do this. I would much rather be like, hey, if I'm in the studio and here's this, this giant of a producer, I would love, for him to speak into this and have some ideas on it. And so I feel like the album ended up being a lot better because of that.
And then, so now we have Songs of Worship. Lead Us Back.
Lead Us Back, yeah.
You got your own vinyl too? This night?
Totally, yeah. This was, so the vinyl thing started coming along, the last maybe 5-8 years. And so we did one for Miracle. I think Miracle was the first vinyl that we did. And then we did one for Lead Us Back. We haven't done one for Revival, which we need to do one for Revival. But so Lead Us Back is interesting. I talked about kind of the pendulum kind of thing earlier, where every album that you do is kind of a reaction to what you've been focused on before. So we had just done this rock album with Brendan O'Brien. We wanted to go back and do the worship thing again because it had been many years since the Offerings projects. But the way of recording has changed so much. In our career, for us to see, we started out like, you're recording like to tape, reel to reel, like that was how everybody recorded then. Then we saw it kind of morph gradually into like the Pro Tools, but you're still in a big studio. But then now it's like you have, records are made by kids with laptops. And we were like, okay, if records are being made by kids with laptops, we either need to all figure out how to record on laptops, or let's just get some kids with laptops to come in and record us. And so that's what we did. So we had these young guys come in. In fact, they call themselves the Sound Kids. So the producers that came in and worked on it, and it was totally different. Like we're used to going and spending a week in the studio, recording the drums and the bass, getting that sounding really good, and then going back and recording all the other things on top of that. The way they recorded, we went in for maybe 2 days and just recorded a really rough version of everything that we had up to that point, all of the songs, and then they took those and with their little laptops and their mouses, or mice, I guess I should say. And then they came back about a week later and they're like, what do you think about this? And they had this like completely like finished thing. And on the one hand, I love this album because I love a lot of the songs on it. Songs like Spirit is amazing. I love Your Words is good. This song called I Know You Can. If I made a list of my favorite Third Day songs, I Know You Can would be easily top 5. So I love the songs on this album, but because I always associate the process with the finished product. And so because it was just this weird thing for us that we like kind of let go of the reins of the recording and just let these guys just kind of run with it, I kind of look back on it and I go, I love this, but in a lot of ways, I don't know that this is the way that I would have.
It's like pros and cons.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a great album. I love a lot of these songs on there. That's a good one.
So when you guys did this revival, were you wanting to do another quick album like the last one? Or is this
so with Revival, we're getting, this is the last Third Day album. I don't know if it's the last Third Day album forever or if just the last Third Day album for now. We had a sense, we recorded this in 2016. We had a sense that this may be the last album. We didn't know for sure, but we had kind of a sense. So we were like, almost like the Beatles did with Abbey Road, where we wanted to, let's have one last just great statement. So we got Monroe, who recorded Time, to come back. We hadn't worked with him. We hadn't even talked to him in probably 10 years at this point. He's just totally gone and doing this other thing. He's got a business. He's not producing as much as he was. We were like, we would love to have you come help us do this. And so we got Monroe back at the reins, and we went to Muscle Shoals to Fame Studios, the famous studio where, Aretha Franklin recorded there. A lot of just great music. Wilson Pickett, a lot of big albums back in the day. So we went there, brought Monroe in, and we had a guy named Vance Powell who's engineered like Jason Isbell and Chris Stapleton, a lot of these big albums. So we had him come in and record it, and so this as far as just straight sonically how this album sounds, my favorite thing we've ever done. I'm really proud
This
of how
your
that
favorite
turned out.
one?
Yeah, just sonically, it's my favorite. There's other albums that I like the songs on probably a little bit better, but I just really, it sounds like, you know, some dudes sitting around in Muscle Shoals, Alabama playing a record, so it's really fun.
So is this the end? Are you going to do another one, or is it going to just take a break?
It's definitely the end for now. I don't know if it's the end forever. And to give you a little backstory, so there were 5 of us from about 95 up until 2008. And then Brad Avery, who played guitar, he left at the beginning of 2008. So then there were 4 of us. And so for about 7 years, there were 4 of us. And we're like, man, it's us against the world. We can do this with 4. This is great. Well, then about 3 years ago, Ty, our bass player, he left. Right? We had just recorded Lead Us Back. We were about to go on tour. And he was just like, y'all, I need to be home with my family now. And we're like, well, of course we're going to be supportive of you, spending time with your family. At first we thought it might be kind of a temporary thing, but then it quickly became apparent that he needed to be home. So Ty left the band in about 2015, and then so there's 3 of us, and we're like, is 3 people, is that really a band, or is that kind of a trio? So we decided, we recorded Revival, and we decided to take a bunch of time off. We were going to try to figure out what we were going to do. Well, during that time, I put my book out. Mac has been working on some country music. He's got a couple albums out now. David, our drummer, got really into photography. Well, so during that time off, he comes to us and he's like, guys, I think I want to get off the road too. So then it's myself and Mac, and there's 2 of us, and we're like, okay, who wants to be Hall and who wants to be Oates?
Oh, nice.
It's kind of where we were at that point. It's like 2 people's not really a band.
White Stripes, see?
Well, I mean, you could, but I don't play drums, or like 21 Pilots or something like that. I mean, you could. There's a way to pull it off, but it involves like really like just dreaming the whole thing up again. And I think if this had happened 5 years into our career, we would have like brought some other guys in and figured out how to pull it off. But because we're 27 years in, to have like the 2 main guys and then just have some random guys playing with us, it just didn't feel totally authentic. And we have some friends that have done that kind of thing, and it's great for them. But we just felt like let's kind of put things down now and let our legacy be the body of work that we've got up to this point, rather than like us, a couple of guys still trying to limp along and carry this thing on, coasting on fumes, So not to say we're done forever, but we're definitely done for now. And so we're focused on different things. Mac has got, I think he's got a new album that he's putting out. And then I've got, the book is out now, and then I've got an EP of music that I released.
How can people find this stuff? How can people find your book?
So you can go to my website, marklee.me, marklee.me, and you can get any of this stuff there. It's also a book, obviously with books, you can go to Amazon and get anything. And then my EP, Unshakable Heart, that came out earlier this year, you go to my website and get it there, and you can also stream it on Spotify or Apple Music or whatever. But if you want a hard copy, the only place to get it right now is on my website. So,
okay.
yeah,
I was looking for one. I gotta go look on your website.
Oh yeah, and that's why you had to do like this
screenshot.
faux album cover kind of thing. So yeah.
Mark, man, appreciate you being on the show.
Hey,
man.
thanks so much. This was fun. I enjoyed it.
Thank you.
All right.